Mark. Senator Summers, good afternoon.
Yes, good evening, Madam President. Thank you. I rise for comments on the resolution.
Please proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. We've heard a lot today. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said. So I wanted to share with you all in the circle a few calls that I've gotten over the past week concerning this agreement. And they're calls from retired folks, but mostly what concerns me is calls in my district, which runs from Groton up to Plainfield, which I would consider a very socioeconomically depressed area, calls from manufacturers in that district. They've all been watching what we're doing. Their eyes are on our vote today. And what they have told me repeatedly is this decision we make today will be the final straw for them as to whether they stay here in Connecticut or whether they leave. And this is not scare tactics. This is the reality. Businesses plan way in ahead, 5 years, 10 years. They have a plan. They've been watching the way Connecticut's been going. They've been watching the debt that it faces, the downgrades of its bonding, and how the legislature has acted. I have been told by at least 2 manufacturers in my district that if this vote goes through today, they already have where they will relocate their facilities to another state. That to me is a scary sign, because when we lose those folks, we lose the jobs, we lose the income, and we leave an already socioeconomically depressed area even further back. The calls that I got from some of the folks that are retired are really, really interesting for me. We talked about some of the agreements here and state employees and the benefits that they get. I have the fortune of having my own business at one point, so I have executive experience. I also ran a town when I was the mayor of Groton. So I'm used to negotiating contracts at the municipal level for great union employees. And they are very different than what you see as a state union employee contract. In fact, if our state union employee contracts were equivalent to what we see in the private sector union or in the municipal union, we would not be in this situation. So I got a call from a retired person who worked for a Fortune 500 company. He gets a small pension of $30,000 a year and lives on Social Security. He asked me, what is the average cost that a state employee pays in for their health care? So we were able to get that information from the Office of Fiscal Analysis. So the average cost of a state employee paying in with one dependent is $2,500 a year. Now we're asking, as part of this concession package, that's going to increase by 1%. What's 1% of $2,500? It's a drop in the bucket when this retired person is paying $1,800 a month for him and his wife. So I think there has to be some recognition on perspective as far as what we're asking folks to concede, coming from the baseline from which they are used to having benefits. The benefits that are provided to the state employees who do a fantastic job are so completely out of line and the norm for the private sector or for public union employees and municipal union employees. There is no comparison. And in my opinion, a concession means actually really giving something up, giving it back. The people that I represent in my district, they don't have guaranteed employment for 5 years. Actually, when this goes through, if this goes through today, we will have people further out of a job in my district. The people I represent, they don't get paid a bonus for coming to work. And the people I represent don't get bought into a nice, big, rich pension system that's guaranteed. They have a 401k. The difference is 401ks are not guaranteed. But the people that I represent, and all of us represent on many cases, they are responsible now for paying for this exclusive protected class in Connecticut. It's a protected class of the state union employees. We hear a lot about giving up, but I want to ask you, what are the taxpayers and the citizens that are not state employees, What are they giving up to fund this? They're giving up their ability to stay in Connecticut. They're giving up their ability to pay their taxes. They're giving up their ability to have their kids remain in Connecticut. For me, leadership is not about the next election. It is about the next generation. And the next generation will be saddled with this agreement for the next decade. For 10 years, our hands are tied. I don't know any business that enters into a 10-year agreement, ever. And we have no layoffs for the next 5 years, guaranteed employment for 5 years. I can honestly say that if you vote today for this agreement, you are not taking every citizen in Connecticut into your thoughts. You're taking 2.4% of the working population in your thoughts. That's who you're fighting for today. I need to fight for all of the citizens in Connecticut and all the citizens in my district. I believe that the negotiations that, again, were done between Governor Malloy and the union leadership have failed in what they've come up with. Right now, the unions will get their raises. They will continue to use unlimited overtime. There is nothing that has been done about longevity payments. They will keep their pensions, and most of all, they will be guaranteed jobs for the next 5 years. There are so many little givebacks in these contracts, things like increased tuition payments, increased time that you get to spend working on union business, things that prevent privatization, and it goes on and on and on. Again, concession for me means that one party actually gives something up. But if you look at this agreement over time, there's a 13% increase in wages. This agreement is a document that really surrenders to the political expediency that we have here. Voting on this contract means higher taxes. It means slowing the already sluggish economic growth that we have here in Connecticut. It means losing businesses. Voting for the contract is more of the same. I'm sure we are all very well aware of the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over again. Governor Malloy, when he came in office, complained and bemoaned the fact that his hands were tied, and now he is doing the same thing to whoever the next governor will be. So I ask, how in passing this contract, if we are facing nearly half of the annual budget, taking it off the table for a decade because we are locked into the cost, how can anyone sitting in this circle think that that's a good idea? What that means is when you have that much of a burden on your annual budget, you will have no other place but to reduce funding for municipalities, which means significant property tax increase. You'll cut funding for education, again, significant property tax increase, and you will devastate those who need the help the most in the social services. There's simply no place else to go. For me, this is a bad idea. This is a bad contract, and it is bad for Connecticut. There are things that can be done. And for Senator Leone, the Senate Republicans have a list of things that can be done without opening up this contract that gets us where we need to be. I have to say that if Connecticut was the Titanic, this deal allows the state employee the first dibs in the lifeboats, while the rest of us are singing "Nearer, My God, to Thee" or freezing in the water. Governor Malloy's the captain, yet he doesn't have the decency to go down with the ship. For me, I can only ask that you will reject this contract. Let's go back to the table and negotiate something that is more fair, that gets the unions more in line than what we see on the local municipal level or the private sector union. Let's get back together and let's look at how we move the needle for Connecticut forward in the most constructive way. This is not the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you remark?